When a woman chooses another man over you, your first instinct might be to question yourself, to wonder what you lacked, or to feel anger and betrayal. But here's where your true strength is tested in your ability to accept her choice with calmness and dignity. Acceptance isn't weakness, it's power. It's you standing firm in who you are, knowing that someone's decision to walk away doesn't define your value. This is where many men go wrong. They chase, they beg, they try to convince her to stay, thinking that somehow they could change her mind. But what that really does is strip away your self respect and hand over your power. When you accept her choice without resistance, you show her, and more importantly, yourself, that you are a man who knows his worth. Acceptance doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you didn't have feelings or that losing her doesn't sting. What it means is that you're wise enough to understand that some things are beyond your control. You can't control how she feels. You can't control her choices. And trying to force a connection that she's already chosen to walk away from only leads to more pain. By stepping back and saying, if this is what you want, I respect that. You reclaim the one thing you do have control over, your response. And that response, that calm detachment, is what separates men who crumble from men who grow. There's an undeniable sense of peace that comes with acceptance. At first, it might feel like defeat, but over time, you realize it's freedom. You're no longer tied to someone who didn't see your value or wasn't meant to walk the path with you. You've removed yourself from the emotional roller coaster of trying to fix something that was never yours to fix. And in that space of peace, you can finally focus on what truly matters. You, your growth, your purpose, your happiness. That's the hidden power in acceptance. It shifts the focus back where it belongs. What most men fail to see in the moment is that acceptance often earns you more respect than begging ever could. She may not admit it out loud, but a woman notices when a man doesn't lose his composure when he walks away with quiet strength instead of anger or desperation. That strength leaves an imprint. It shows her that you are not defined by her validation, that you are the kind of man who can handle loss with dignity. And that, ironically, is often when regret begins to creep in for her, but by then you've already moved forward. Life has a way of testing us through loss, and how we respond determines the man we become. By accepting her choice, you're not just letting her go, you're choosing yourself. You're choosing to trust that what's meant for you will never have to be chased or forced. You're choosing to believe that if she wasn't the right person, there's someone better aligned with your path waiting down the line. And you're choosing to protect your energy from situations that don't honor your worth. So when she chooses someone else, let her. Not out of spite, but out of understanding that your power lies in your ability to release what isn't serving you. Acceptance isn't about giving up. It's about stepping into a higher version of yourself. It's about keeping your dignity intact, your focus sharp, and your heart open to what's truly meant for you. And when you do that, you'll see that losing her was never really a loss. It was a first step toward winning something far greater. When she chooses another man, it's natural for your ego to take a hit. You might feel replaced, overlooked, or even humiliated. But what most men fail to realize in that moment is that rejection is not a reflection of your worth, it's a revelation of compatibility. Her choice doesn't mean you're not good enough. It simply means that, for her, something didn't align. And instead of fighting that truth, you need to embrace it. Because here's the reality: someone who is meant for you will never make you question your value or force you to compete for their attention. By understanding this, you shift your perspective from loss to clarity, and that shift is where your power lies. When you start to see her choice as information instead of an insult, everything changes. Instead of dwelling on what you could have done differently, you begin to see that her decision is simply her telling you where she stands. And if you're honest with yourself, you probably sensed it already. Maybe her energy changed, maybe her communication slowed, maybe her effort dwindled. Those signs were never about you failing, they were about her feelings shifting. And when you look at it through that lens, her leaving isn't betrayal, it's confirmation that she's not the right person to build a future with you. That realization allows you to release the resentment and focus instead on what you deserve moving forward. This mindset doesn't come overnight. At first, the sting of being left for someone else can feel overwhelming. You might even find yourself questioning everything: your looks, your confidence, your status. But here's the truth you need to internalize: your value doesn't decrease because someone else couldn't see it. What changes is your environment, not your essence. Think about it this way: not every woman is meant to recognize your greatness, and that's perfectly okay. The one who does will never need convincing, and that's the standard you should hold yourself to. Someone who chooses you freely, without hesitation or second thoughts. The beauty of accepting rejection lies in how it transforms you. It teaches you emotional control, patience, and the ability to separate your self-worth from external validation. Instead of chasing her or trying to prove yourself, you take the loss as a lesson and use it to grow. You begin to invest in yourself, your fitness, your mindset, your goals. You start to realize that the real victory isn't in winning her back, but in becoming a man who is so grounded in his value that he never fears loss again. And ironically, when you reach that level of self assurance, the dynamic flips. You stop chasing, and people start chasing you. This is why rejection, as painful as it feels in the moment, is actually a gift. It exposes areas of your life where you may have been settling or ignoring red flags. It gives you the opportunity to recalibrate, to build a version of yourself that aligns with the kind of relationship you truly want. Most importantly, it reminds you that your life is bigger than one person, and that your purpose and happiness are not dependent on her approval. So instead of resenting her choice or seeing yourself as the man who lost, start seeing yourself as the man who was redirected. Because the truth is, if she chose someone else, she freed you from wasting time on someone who wasn't fully invested. And that's a blessing in disguise. By embracing that truth, you position yourself to attract someone who will value you for exactly who you are. No convincing, no chasing, no proving required. That's when you truly win. When she chooses another man, one of the greatest mistakes you can make is letting your emotions take control. The urge to react is strong, to confront her, to demand answers, or to prove that you're the better choice. But here's the harsh truth: reacting emotionally only hands her your power on a silver platter. A stoic man understands that silence, composure, and self-control are far louder than any angry words could ever be. When you refuse to let her decision shake your foundation, you send a message, not just to her, but to yourself, that your value isn't up for debate, and it certainly isn't tied to anyone else's opinion. Remaining calm in that situation isn't easy, but it's necessary, because when emotions run high, logic disappears. And when logic disappears, you act in ways that only validate her decision to leave. You text her endlessly, you beg for closure, you spiral into behaviors that make you look needy and desperate. But when you take a breath, when you step back and choose silence over chaos, you're showing her, and more importantly yourself, that you are in full control of your emotions. That calm, confident energy is what separates the men who crumble from the men who rise. This is the kind of strength women don't expect. Society has conditioned many to believe that men will fight, plead, or even humiliate themselves just to hold on to someone who has already chosen to walk away. But when you do the opposite, when you carry yourself with dignity, you stand out. She notices the silence. She notices that you didn't chase, that you didn't collapse. And that silence becomes deafening because it forces her to face a reality she didn't anticipate. That her choice didn't break you. Power in staying grounded isn't just about how it affects her perception, though. It's also about how it rebuilds yours. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you're strengthening the part of you that values self-respect above external validation. That's the foundation of true masculine energy, the ability to remain steady when the world around you is testing your limits. By doing this, you train yourself to never give someone the ability to disrupt your peace. You reclaim control, and with that control comes confidence, clarity, and growth. What many men fail to understand is that indifference is more powerful than anger. Anger says you're still emotionally tied. Indifference says you've already let go. And letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you respect yourself enough to not fight for someone who doesn't see your worth. It means you recognize that begging or proving yourself would only diminish your value. By choosing silence and composure, you're not just protecting your dignity, you're also preserving your energy for the things and people who truly matter. And here's the most ironic part: the moment you stop reacting, the dynamic shifts. Your silence creates space for her to feel the weight of her choice. It may not happen overnight, but eventually curiosity creeps in. She wonders why you didn't fight, why you didn't collapse, why you walked away so easily. And that quiet strength often leaves a stronger impression than any words ever could. Because at the end of the day, the man who remains calm, who doesn't lose himself in the storm, always comes out stronger. He doesn't just survive the heartbreak, he evolves through it, becoming the kind of man who doesn't need validation from anyone. That's the kind of strength that not only wins in love, but in life. The strength that reminds you, no matter what happens, you are always enough. When she chooses another man, it's easy to let that rejection define you. It's easy to sit there and think something is wrong with you, that you weren't good enough, or that you somehow failed. But the truth is, her decision is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of her choices, her values, and her perception in that moment. When you understand this deeply, you stop internalizing her actions as a measure of your value. Instead, you begin to see the situation for what it truly is, an opportunity to protect your self-respect and refocus your energy on what truly matters: you. By choosing to let her go without clinging, you reclaim the most powerful thing a man can own: his sense of self. You stop placing your happiness in the hands of someone who didn't see your value, and you start investing that energy back into yourself. This is where real growth begins. You hit the gym, not because you want to make her jealous, but because you want to feel strong and confident in your own skin. You can focus on your career, your passions, your goals, because you realize that your purpose was never meant to revolve around one person's validation. This shift in mindset doesn't just heal you, it transforms you. Women are naturally drawn to men who live with purpose, men who don't allow their emotions to control them or their world to collapse over someone else's decision. When you let go gracefully, you're showing that your life is abundant with or without her. That silent strength creates a magnetic energy that people, not just women, respect and admire. Suddenly, you're no longer the man chasing validation. You're the man building something meaningful, the man who commands respect because he first respected himself. What you'll start to notice is that letting go opens doors you never even realized were there. When you stop obsessing over the one who left, you create space for people who truly appreciate you, who see your worth without you having to convince them. And this is the beauty of detachment. It frees you from cycles of desperation and allows you to attract relationships that align with your value and your standards. That's when you understand that losing her wasn't a loss at all. It was a redirection towards something better. The more you focus on your growth, the less her choice even matters. Over time, you stop thinking about what she's doing, who she's with, or whether she regrets leaving. You're too busy evolving, too busy leveling up, too busy building a version of yourself that commands respect wherever you go. And ironically, that's when she often notices. That's when the silence you maintained and the dignity you kept start to echo in her mind. She may not say it, but deep down she realizes you were the man who didn't need her to validate his worth. And that realization is powerful, not because it makes you win her back, but because it shows you never lost in the first place. True power comes from understanding that you are enough, with or without anyone's approval. The man who knows his value, who doesn't chase, and who keeps building his life will always come out ahead in the end. And when you reach that point, you understand that letting her go was never the end. It was the beginning of you stepping fully into the man you were meant to become. When she chooses another man, it's natural to feel the sting of rejection. The ego wants to fight back, to prove something, to show her she made the wrong choice. But the real power doesn't come from chasing, arguing, or trying to compete. It comes from stepping back, staying calm, and focusing entirely on yourself. This is where your strength as a man truly shines. In your ability to detach from what no longer serves you and redirect that energy into becoming the best version of yourself. And when you stop pouring energy into her and instead invest it in your own growth, something profound happens. You start to realize that you don't need her or anyone else to feel complete. You take control of your physical health, your mindset, your career, your goals. You build yourself into the kind of man who commands respect without having to demand it. And this transformation doesn't just heal your pain, it positions you on a completely different level. The man who once felt devastated becomes the man who others admire and want to emulate. The key here is to understand that your worth was never dependent on her decision. She made a choice, and that's her path. But your path, that's entirely in your control. And when you focus on building that path with purpose and discipline, you start attracting opportunities and people who match your new level. This is why detachment is so powerful. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about genuinely not allowing her choices to dictate your direction. Think about how magnetic a man becomes when he channels his pain into progress. When he uses that heartbreak as fuel to work harder in the gym, to build his business, to chase his goals relentlessly, that man radiates confidence because he's not standing still. And confidence is something people can feel. It's silent but undeniable. She may see it, others will definitely see it, and most importantly, you will feel it. That internal shift is what separates a man who stays stuck in the past from a man who rises beyond it. And here's the irony. The moment you truly stop caring and start thriving, the balance of power shifts. She may start to notice that you're no longer watching her, no longer waiting for her, no longer available to feed her ego. That absence, that silence, creates a space where she has no choice but to wonder about you. But by then, you won't even be concerned with her thoughts. You'll be too focused on building a life so fulfilling that her absence no longer leaves a void. That's the ultimate win. Not getting her back, but becoming the kind of man who no longer needs her validation. Because when you reach that point, you'll realize that her leaving wasn't the end of your story. It was the moment you started writing a new one, a stronger one. And from that place of strength, you'll never allow anyone's choices to shake your foundation again. In the end, letting her go gracefully and focusing on your own growth isn't just a strategy. It's a statement. It says, I know my value. I know what I bring. And I don't need anyone to validate that. And that is the kind of quiet power that makes you truly untouchable. When she chooses another man, the easiest thing to do is to let bitterness consume you, to replay the moments, to question yourself, to wonder why you weren't enough. But the truth is that mindset keeps you trapped in a cycle where her decision defines your value. The real power move, the one that separates men who rise from men who stay stuck, is learning to forgive, release, and completely detach. Not for her sake, but for yours. Because when you let go of that anger and resentment, you free yourself to build a kind of future that makes her choice irrelevant. Forgiveness, in this context, doesn't mean excusing what she did or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about recognizing that holding on to the pain only weighs you down. The energy you spend being angry, scrolling through her updates, or replaying every conversation in your head is energy that could be building your life. When you redirect that energy, something powerful happens. You stop being reactive and you start being intentional. You begin to pour that focus into your goals, your growth, and your vision for the man you want to become. The ability to detach emotionally isn't about coldness, it's about clarity. When you stop trying to control outcomes you can't control, like who she chooses to be with, you regain control over the one thing you can always influence, yourself. And this shift in perspective is liberating. You no longer feel the need to compete or to prove anything because you understand that her decision was about her, not about your worth. That kind of inner strength is what truly makes you untouchable. And here's what makes this approach so powerful. When you release her from your mind, you also release her hold over your emotions. Suddenly her life and her choices no longer dictate how you feel day to day. That peace of mind is something no one can take from you. You become the man who isn't swayed by someone walking away because your confidence and self respect don't depend on external validation. This is what women in the world find magnetic: a man who is centered, calm, and entirely in control of himself. Detachment also creates space for better things to enter your life. The more you hold on to what's gone, the more you block opportunities for new, healthier connections to find you. But when you let go, you start to notice doors opening in your career, your social life, and even your relationships. And the irony, that's often when she starts to notice too. When she sees that you've not only moved on but elevated, that's when curiosity creeps in. But by then, you won't even need or want her validation because you've already stepped into a version of yourself that no longer chases. Ultimately, detachment is about power, the quiet, unshakable kind that comes from knowing who you are and what you deserve. It's about recognizing that someone choosing another path doesn't take anything away from your value or your potential. And once you truly internalize that, you stop seeing her choice as a loss and start seeing it as a turning point. The moment life challenged you to grow into the man you were meant to become. When you reach that point, you don't just move on, you level up. And that's the sweetest victory of all. Living a life so full, so focused, and so purposeful that no one else's decision can ever shake you again.